I like this town. It's a good town. I like my house. I like my neighborhood. My mom and dad live over in Bayview, and my brother Patrick lives about 5 blocks down there. My brother Michael lives up on 68th Street, and my brother Matthew lives over on 54th. And that's really it. It's family. It's immaterial where I live because I'm traveling all the time. So this is a good spot for me for now, I think. If you got a pretty good idea what you're looking for, then you got a pretty good idea what you'll find. You don't have to go so very far these days to find yourself a made-up mind. I was 7 years old, and I went to summer camp, a place called Camp Gray. And there was a camp counselor that played the guitar, and it's one of those things. I got home and asked my parents, I'm 7 years old and I want a guitar, and they got me one. And I used to walk down the block and take lessons, and up on North Avenue from a guy named Norb Kaminsky in the basement of a music shop. That went on for years, and then I used to play Pink Floyd tunes in high school. Play "Wish You Were Here" and all that stuff, and a friend of my brother's comes down in the basement and I'm playing "Wish You Were Here" or something, and he says, you sing real good, you play real good, maybe you should start writing. The know-it-all washes away in the morning rain. Those kids out in the street raise up their hands, they keep moving their feet. I think they know it all washes away in the morning rain. In the morning rain. I moved to Boston in the early 90s, and I was working temp jobs and they just sucked. It was just awful. No fun. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll just go down and play in the subway and see what happens. And I made it 70 or 80 bucks that day, in change and selling CDs. I think I had a CD by then. And that was just a way more fun way to spend time. And I got fans together, and I also put in, the hundreds and hundreds, really the thousands and thousands of hours playing music for people. That's where I learned to really do it. I mean, you kind of have to, it seems the way the species is built, like you got to do something for thousands of hours until some inner part of you just relaxes and goes, oh, this isn't that hard. So now on stage, I'm a pretty relaxed guy, and I think that helps. The audience it draws them in, because I don't need them to think a certain thing or whatever. I'm able to just sort of say, hey, well, here's what's going on, I hope you like it. And people seem to respond, and I think that that's a direct result of all the time. I've been playing since I was a kid at the Cafe Carp, which is 56 miles, pretty much down that street, just west in a town of Fort Atkinson. And I've been biking for the past 10 years, pretty decent distances. And one day, that the innocent thought of, well, if I could just carry a guitar on a bicycle, I could bike to the Cafe Carp and play a gig there. That innocent thought met a second innocent thought, which was, then I'd only be 35 miles from Madison. And I could maybe get a little mini tour together, and those two thoughts connected with each other and snowballed, and then I was doing this tour that involved that and Green Lake and Oshkosh and Sheboygan, and it was wonderful, but it was really something. Like, I had to get in the kind of shape where I could do a 300, 400-mile tour, and then I just kept going. Once you do that, once you get a taste of that, you think, wow, there's really something to this, like sunshine and fresh air and exercise all summer long and getting in really good physical shape. And the most recent bicycle tour I did went from here down my driveway to the ferry across Lake Michigan, and then across the state of Michigan, across Ontario, across the state of New York, across the Green Mountains, into Boston. And when you do that yourself, it sinks in, you know. You think, wow, I did just go 1,000 miles. Like, that hurt, you know, but more than that. That was really something, you know. I'm going to do it until my knees quit, you know, until I'm old and doddering. I want to make sure to do a week or two of touring by bicycle every year. I could say that there's environmental, you know, statements to be made, and I guess there are. I mean, if I can bike to work hundreds and hundreds of miles, then anybody can bike to work. But, you know, that would get old if it were just about the statement. It's just more about the experience. We were above the Hudson River, and there was this bank of fog, and there was frost everywhere. There was frost everywhere. There was a shadow on the ground, you know, in the shadows of all the houses. And we were going to be descending towards the Hudson River, and we stopped and we got these cider donuts. And when you're that hungry, you know, you've been burning that many calories, and you're in that situation, that's the best donut you can have. I'm going to remember that donut till I'm old. My first niece was born down in Chicago about 9 years ago, and that day I met her, but later in the day I got home here and went upstairs and wrote her a letter, and I've just kept that up. I just write them letters from the road. And so I just wanted them to, you know, get letters from an uncle saying, hey, you know, I'm in France, I'm in Alaska. But also I try to mention their parents and their situation and what they're doing, so they have a little snapshot of themselves against the background of the world. And then it occurred to me that I could just use that format to write about some ideas about time that I'd wanted to get at on my new record. And so, you know, I changed the names, but I used some anecdotes that had to do with my nieces and nephews and changed a few details in order to get that across. And I wrote music that went underneath them, and now I do the music. And it actually includes airplane noises, you know, because that's the imaginary sound of where I write most of these letters these days, is on airplanes.